Now we are going to talk about the keyword argument, right? So consider this function over here. So here we are defining the function func1. A, B, C, these are the positional argument, right? So let's define this, and we can call this function in this way. We can also define all these parameter value over here in the function. We can say that B is this. So we can change the position over here after defining this variable. We can even do so. So we here this 10 means A, this 10 will stand for A, and for C and the B we have defined it, right? So using the named argument is optional, and it is up to this the function caller who is calling or who is using the function, right? But what if we want to force call to our function to use the named argument? So what if we force the caller to use the named argument directly, right? For that, we can do so by exhausting all the positional argument and adding some additional parameter in the function definitions. Consider this function over here. Here we have this function 1. We are defining the function 1. We have this two positional argument A and the B. Then we have this star arcs, right, which is the optional argument, and then we are defining B. So if I run this, but let's say if I call this function, this will not work because A, B, and the 100 will be passed to the argument, but again D will not take any value. So what we can do is we can define or we can type this D argument, right? So here we are passing 10, 20, which is for A and the B, and this A and the B has been passed to the argument, and then over here we are forcing the caller to pass this named argument, right? So here we are forcefully passing this D equal to 100. If I do so, then this will work, right? We can even define a function that has only positional argument and a mandatory keyword argument, right? Like over here, we have this func1, we have this star arcs, and then we have this D. D is our positional argument. So these like something like we have to pass, like we have to mandate it, right? Without that, this will not work. Here we are passing. Let's say that here we are calling the function 1, 2, 3 will pass to the argument and D will hold hello, right? What happens if I do not pass any value for the argument? Here we are saying D equal to hello. This is working because argument does not take any value over here, but the positional argument is mandatory over here. If I do not pass D value, this will not work because we have not given any default value. But let's say that if you give the default value, here we have given the default value as an NA, right? Then it will work. If I do so, if I pass this, if I run this function without passing any value for argument and the D, this will even work. So sometimes we want only the keyword argument, in which case we can still have to exhaust the positional argument over here. So let's understand these functions. So here we are calling the function 1 func1, which take the star, we are not giving any name, and then we are saying D equal to hello. So we are giving the default value for D argument over here. Let's run this. If I call this and if I pass the value as 10, right? So it is not taking any argument. This says that this function takes 0 argument, but we have passed the value for, like here we have passed the 10 value. But when I call this will work because this is the default value was there. For this argument, the default value was there. So we can call this, right? Now, of course, if you do not provide the default value for the keyword argument, right? So over here, if like here we have the star A and the B, so we have to forcefully give this A and the B value. But if you do not forcefully give the value for if you do not if you do not pass the A and the B value, or if you do not name the argument value, then this will not work, right? Now consider this value over here. So here we have this function 1, it takes A, it takes star, then we have this B as a default value, and then we have this C. So when I pass this 5 will go for the A, right? And then we are passing the value for C. B value has been already given. Star has no meaning, so like star will not take any value over here. It can work. We can also include the positional non-defaulted value. Like over here, we are seeing that here we have this function a, b value is given. Again, we have this star r's which will hold any so like this will hold this multiple value, right? So this is an optional value. Then again, we have passed the value for d and e, right? Let's define this. Again, we are calling this function. So what will happen is 5 will be given to A, 4 is for B, and then 3, 2, 1 is for the R's, and then we are defining D and the E. Right? The same way here we are calling for these two functions. Right? So now we have seen that how the keyword argument work, how the named argument work, right? How to force the caller to specify the argument name or to use the named argument during the calling. Right? Thank you very much.